Hello, everyone, and welcome to session 2 on our development day, all around thinking on your feet. My name is Ashley Rennison, and I am membership manager here at the Institute, and I will also be your host for today's session. I'd just like to begin by paying my respect and acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're all meeting today, and also paying my respect to elders past, present, and emerging. The ability to think on your feet is a core skill. It means getting your ideas across clearly, concisely, persuasively, and being remembered. I think we have all had times in our lives where we've been lost for words under pressure, gone around in circles, or figured out the perfect answer to a question after it's already been asked. The basis of Think on Your Feet is that clear thinking leads to clear speaking. Today, the Think on Your Feet workshop is available in over 30 countries in 12 languages, and more than 500,000 people have taken the workshop and benefit from the knowledge and skills developed within the program. Pam Harris, our wonderful speaker for this session, has a wealth of experience delivering and designing communication, leadership, and personal development training courses. Because Think on Your Feet has such a significant impact on people's success and confidence, it's one of Pam's favourite sessions to take. She's a licensed Think on Your Feet affiliate for many years and has facilitated this program around Australia for people in all industries and at all stages of their careers. Workshops for Think on Your Feet are delivered as both traditional face-to-face and virtual format, developing practical skills while being high energy and fun. We are very excited to have her joining us to provide a bit of a snapshot of some of the key learnings from the program in this 1-hour session. Just a bit of housekeeping before we kick off. If you have any questions throughout the session, please just pop them in the Q&A box and we'll get to as many as possible at the end of the session. Hopefully you also have your Development Day action plan with you as well. If you don't have that on with you now, we'll pop that in the chat as well so that you can access that and look through it as Pam's going through her presentation. Thank you so much, Pam. Take it away.
Great, thank you so much. So, right, welcome everybody. And I wish I could see your smiling faces, but hopefully we'll have a good morning together. So I'd like to cover 3 questions, and pretty much what Ash says is kind of in the brochure, I guess, which is what is thinking on your feet and why is it important? Because it certainly is. And I guess the reason you're here is how do you do it? And so it's interesting, I guess, think on your feet. I like to sum it up as some skills and techniques to express yourself the way you would like to in the moment and under pressure. And it's alarming how many times that in the moment and under pressure seems to scramble information that we thought we had at our fingertips that sometimes we don't. So I wonder if you're like me, because you'd think I'd know better, but still I find myself in meetings and occasionally I'm asked a question or to overview something, and I have that freeze moment. I know it's in there somewhere, but I'm not sure why I'm hesitating a little bit to say so. And so when you walk away, you go, oh no, why didn't I say this? Now I know exactly how I should have answered that. Or for me, I'm more likely to find myself talking before I've thought it through and taking people on a bit of a long journey, and eventually I'll find out what I want to say, but it was a bit of a circuitous route, not necessarily the very best way to do it. So I think that's that fight and flight mechanism kicking in. You know, when we're under pressure, do we freeze or do we sort of come out swinging? And the worst scenario is sometimes we find ourselves saying something and why did I say that? Where did that come from? And one of my sort of favourite examples of that is Daniel Craig, who you probably know as James Bond. So Daniel Craig on the interview circuit on his second last James Bond movie was asked, so Daniel, will you be playing James Bond again? And he said, I'd rather chew my arm off. And as you know, he did go on and run another and play James Bond in the next movie as well. So you can just imagine how many times he's been asked, didn't you say that was something you weren't going to do? So I don't know whether you're like me and occasionally you go, what made me say that? So I think what it is that we start to talk before we had a chance to think, or before we've given ourselves that moment to know what it is that we actually want to say. So I guess what it is this. So let me share that one with you. So thinking on your feet is clarity, brevity and impact, even under pressure. So what does that mean? So I'm sure all of us have a lot of technical knowledge and background that we know that our listeners, our colleagues, our customers don't necessarily want to know that amount of detail. So I guess clarity is, can I get across a complex information or a concept to someone else in a way that's going to make sense to them? And then, of course, less words is better than more words, isn't it? So brevity would be great. I'm a really bad example of that this morning because on a webinar, of course, I'm probably doing a lot more talking than I normally would, but less words is really great. And then impact is, as I walk away, have the key points that I wanted people to retain, has my message, has my action plan, has that resonated, and will people remember that and follow that? So that is really the thing, and particularly under pressure. So under pressure, of course, is the most difficult time to do that. So let me see where that fits. So I think probably all of us have been to something a little bit more formal, maybe a presentation skills program. And that's sitting on the left, I think. So occasionally we do that. But strangely, in my job, organisations often ask me to run something on communication for people who might be stepping up to the next level of their career or be facing a particular challenge. Are they speaking at a conference or something? So it might be the graduate program. Let's give them some core skills. So I often say, so what presentations do you run? And people go, no, very many. And so I think even for someone who does it for a living, like a facilitator, it's not a lot of what we do is prepared and scripted. So it's really on that right-hand side there, that informal and impromptu. So we all find that, that's a big part of our work, isn't it? So you have ideas you'd like to share with someone, you're in a meeting, you're responding to something. It's not scripted. You've got some ideas about perhaps where that's going, but it needs to evolve. But the key to that is really thinking first. And today's theme is about communication in the world we live in now, which is quite different, isn't it? A lot more technology, maybe a little bit less patience than other times of the decade. So I was wondering, they tell me that you're a great group of people to participate, so I hope that's the case. And I was wondering if you'd like to help me with that. So I'm thinking we all spend a lot of time in virtual meetings, don't we? And so I wonder what's happening. It's a little bit like this today. So I'm hoping that this is you, number A, which is riveted to everything that you say. So I wonder when you go to your team meetings, it might be virtual meetings, are people hanging on every word and absolutely focused? Or perhaps they're half listening. Are they? Maybe their thoughts are on other things. Or worst of all, maybe they're multitasking. So I really don't know. So I was wondering would you like to drop in the chat box whether you would be voting for most likely is A, B or C. So we'll see what happens. Oh, there's a lot of C's coming through, a couple of B's, and no A's at all. So I'm hoping that you're kind of listening with me, but yeah, lots of B's and C's. Not ideal, someone said. I think I'd agree with that. And so, well, if you're in your half an ear, or maybe they're busy on something else. I think, Paul, well done, is focused. So I think that's quite typical, isn't it? That as we share information in our workplace, I think we have to understand that lots of people might be busy on other things. So let's try another challenge. So maybe it's this. So perhaps you're working remotely, or are you working from home, or you need to catch up with someone in another business unit and you just want a quick answer. So you want to know, look, is it Tuesday or Wednesday, or have I got the code for this right? Or could you just give me a quick sort of yes or no on something? So if you wanted that quick answer from your colleague, what would you do? Would you phone them? Or would you send them an email, or maybe would you just use a team chat or a WhatsApp or something like that? So I can see some A's coming through here now. So maybe it's complicated. I don't know. Maybe that's quicker. But yeah, the team chat and the WhatsApp and what have you seem to be it. I know in my family there's lots of text messaging and not a lot of conversation. Even when it's my husband's brother's birthday, I'll go, for heaven's sake, ring Drew. And he go, no, I've sent him a text message. So I'm not sure how that's going. So we often find a bit of a quick solution, don't we? So here's another challenge for you. So imagine there's something that you need to know, and maybe let's give this a bit of a home emphasis. So at my place, it might be, how do you descale a coffee machine? Or does anyone know how to change the filter on the Dyson or something? So we'll look for the instruction book, or maybe we'll download the instruction. We'll read the instructions, or we ask someone for help. I think I'd ask the kids for help. They're usually pretty good. Or would you watch a YouTube video? So you can't go wrong with that. So I'm wondering what you're thinking you might do. Are you going to read all the information, or are you going to sort of look for a bit of a shortcut? Or some people are doing all three. It might be, perhaps how complex it is, or what have you. So the challenge in my place is always resetting the time on the oven when we've changed from daylight saving. So I don't know what you might do, but let me see. What about if you wanted to catch up what's going on in the world? And so I always think of my my lovely dad with this one, who always says we should get the Sydney Morning Herald delivered. And we keep saying, look, if we got the Sydney Morning Herald delivered, I don't think we'd ever have time to read it before 8 o'clock at night. But maybe you do, maybe travelling. So to find out the news, would you read a newspaper, that or the Fin Review or something, or would you watch the news? Now, I'm a big fan of that, watch the television news, but tends to be at the end of the day, or would you be checking out the headlines online? So when the Matildas are playing their game, are you going to be waiting to the end of the day to find out how they go, or what have you? People have said, I do all three, maybe depending on what the topic is. So I don't know, we're a bit of everything, aren't we? If I'm looking at what people are doing that. Some people have said I'd read on weekends. Yeah, that's a good idea. Me too, when I've got a little bit more time. So I reckon we could all say brevity, clarity, and making sure that our message resonates with people is probably a really good idea. So I think as life has gone on, we've got a little bit less tolerant of wordy things and looking for something sort of quick and succinct, which is probably what today is all about. So in the activity that I sent out that you might want to think about today or before you came along, I put up a little bit of a challenge, and that was, let's imagine someone asked you, could you tell me about yourself? So I wish we were all in a conference together with a glass of wine maybe, and I'll have a name tag that says Pam, Institute of Managers and Leaders, or Think on Your Feet, and you've got whatever you've got. And we might go, oh, hello, nice to meet you. Tell me about yourself. And that's a challenging one, isn't it? We often get that at the beginning of a meeting, or when we're meeting a client, or maybe a networking social thing, or whatever it is. And you think, oh gosh, what should I say, and where should I start? Because there's a great deal more that we could share than we probably should. So in that time frame, short and sweet would be good. I don't know where to start. So swirling around in my head might be all sorts of things about what should I talk about? Should I talk about work or my background, or some personal stuff, family interests, something interesting? I don't know. So I wish I could get you to choose three for me, but I'll take a bit of a stab at ones that people often choose when I put that up and say, all right, so I'm just going to tell you, I'll just pick three there, a little bit of a smattering of some work and personal and something interesting. So I might go, oh, tell me about yourself. I might go, hello. Well, look, I'm Pam. Lovely to meet you too. And I'm going to share with you just a couple of things. So first of all, 1,500 names, a river cruise in the parking ferry. So 1,500 names. I worked out one year that if I do about 100 days of facilitating a year, which I've done for a long time, and somewhere between sort of 10 and 20 people tend to be on those, then that's up to 1,500 people a year. So I'm not always brilliant with names, but hopefully I'll recognise faces. But it's lovely to meet people in all different industries and just get a little snapshot of something fascinating that I really enjoy, and hopefully that gives me things to share as well. So river cruise, probably like everybody, no one's had too much of a big holiday over the last couple of years. So we've finally got one coming up in August. And so we'll be away for about a month or so. But one component of that is a river cruise. So hopefully in about a month's time, I will be sailing down the Rhine with a glass of champagne, watching the German castles go round and ignoring my email. So the third thing I was going to share with you is the parking ferry, which is a little bit about the power of positive thinking. Some of you might be aware of that. A friend of mine shared it with me, which is that if you drive into Westfield on a Saturday morning and go, gosh, I hope there's a car spot, you go, please, parking ferry, may I have a spot? And it's amazing how that positive attitude tends to make one show up. And so you could try that. I really recommend it. And it's a lot less stressful than driving around swearing at people, which is more likely what my husband is likely to do. So there you go. I have the pleasure of working with quite a lot of people every year, which I really love. Looking forward to a bit of a break. And parking ferry, I'd really recommend you give that a go. So you might have noticed the technique that I used, which was we can think much more quickly in sort of short bursts and think on your feet. We call that pegs or keywords. So I picked a few there and I let you know what they were going to be. I expanded on that a little bit and then I wrapped it up somehow at the end, not necessarily repeating, but pulling it together. So hopefully that would resonate with people and people would remember. In your workplace, that would be the 3 key issues about something or 3 things that you're working on or whatever it is, the 3 points. If I was going to meet you in a work setting, then you don't want to know about the parking ferry, but I might do it a different way. So I'm hoping as I'm doing this, you're thinking, okay, well, what would my points be if we met in person and what would you share? So if I met you in a work scenario, I might tell you a little bit about my work. So I might go, hi, lovely to meet you. Yes, I work as a learning and development consultant and there's a few areas of my work. Firstly, leadership and management. So I run some diplomas and advanced diplomas of leadership and of business, which I love. And I've got about 6 cohorts of people working through that at the moment for 12 months. So that's really good. It seems to make a real impact in their work environment. Secondly, interpersonal skills. Who doesn't love that? So I do quite a bit of communication and influencing skills and emotional intelligence, that kind of thing, which is great. But as Ash said before, I think on My Feet is my favourite because it's a really interactive program and seems to fit with everybody, whether they're starting out in their career, mid-career, stepping into a leadership role, or in a very senior position where the questions and issues that we need to deal with are becoming, very, very crucial. So there you go. So if we met you in a work situation, that's what I might say. So I'm wondering if you have been able to have a bit of a think about what your key points might be if you were going to introduce yourself to there. And so there we go. Whether that's work or social, what would be your key 3 things? So I've been talking to you about structure, and I'd better put my money where my mouth is and see if we can prove that that actually works, we hope. So I am not sure who we have on the call today, but I'm expecting that there could well be people who are rather good at maths. Hang on a second, I'll just put that back up again. Stop that one. And we'll put this one back up. Okay, so hopefully this is behaving and coming up again. Oh, it's not. Hang on one second. Let's put that down again. And okay, let's try putting up this one there. Okay, now that's looking better. So I'm going to put up a number, and I'm not sure whether you're an engineer or an IT person or a banker, or whether numbers are really your thing. So if I share that with you, then, it's still not coming up. Why is it not coming up, Ash? That's really peculiar. Okay, let me just try.
Are you giving different options when you're sharing?
Well, it was working perfectly, wasn't it?
Got to think on our feet here, Pam.
I know, we need the engineer, don't we? Let me try one more time. Yeah, I'm hitting exactly what I want.
There we go, showing now.
It's just Zoom, it just does its own thing, doesn't it? So if I showed you that number, you'd be thinking, well, I know, is the 1 at the beginning or the 0 at the beginning, and what number is that? So I'm not sure whether you've ever been to that presentation. Oh, Gary reckons it's 1,000,000. Oh, good guess. Or tell you what about, Gary, if I gave it to you like that? Would that be any? Everybody says it's 1,000,000. I don't know. So if I show you that, I bet you're thinking, how many zeros is that? And so that's 8 zeros. How many zeros is that? So, but if I show it to you like that, then I reckon we are all instantly, we know that's 100 million. And so why actually is that? It's because it has a pattern. And so we know that base 10 is 3 zeros with a comma. And so when you see that, you go, oh, that's 100 million. And the other one, you would have been going, oh, hang on, how many zeros is that? And so as I was talking about something else, or if it was you, if you are talking about something else and sharing this with your listener or your client or your manager, they'd be going, well, hang on a second, what is he talking about? So, so Think on Your Feet is really tapping into the fact that structure and patterns work really well to keep us all on the same page and keep our information clear. So I might leave that up in case that was messing up before. So Think on Your Feet is about structure. So why is that a good idea? It gives you focus as the listener. And it gives me focus as the speaker. So if I said, well, I'm going to tell you about 1,500 names, or I'm going to tell you about learning and development, or I'm going to tell you about the parking ferry, or whatever my points were, hopefully you're going, oh, okay, right. So I'm tuned in on that. And it clarifies our thinking, but it doesn't lock us in. It lets you expand. And so it allows you to have a sort of a fresh conversation with people without losing the plot. So I wonder at some point in your career whether you've done a survey or given any thought to what is your natural thinking style, because some of us have that really brilliant logical process thinking. I wish I did. And often that leads to careers, or if your thinking style in your career match really well, you might be really great at anything that has a process. You know, is it law? Is it medicine? Is it IT? Is it engineering? Is it anything technical, logical, systematic? So on the structure side, picking the points first keeps us on track, but then you are able to expand and wing it. So it's the perfect way to use your brain in the optimum way, which is holistic thinking. And if you're wondering, well, am I perfectly in the middle, or do I lean one way or the other? Let me just see. So perhaps if you're a logical thinker, some of these might look familiar or really appeal to you. But you might have been the people who said, hey, I'll read the newspaper or read the instruction book. If you're going to buy something, you need to buy a camera, a printer, a car, then you need to know all about it and more than the salesperson before you kind of make that decision. Check it out online and choice and what have you. You probably have a neat wardrobe. Have we got the long sleeves and the short sleeves and the work clothes and the shoes and boxes? And, you know, I wish I had that. And maybe there's rules for the dishwasher. My husband's a financial planner and he's got rules for the dishwasher. The cutlery's supposed to go here and the plates go that way. And I go, who cares? But yeah, so if you like to kind of follow the right process of something, or you're a fan of spreadsheets. So I mentioned we're going on a holiday. We often travel with our really good friends, David and Judy. And David is a systems architect for a bank. So he is a serious logical thinker. And this is a previous holiday. This one's only 2 weeks. Because I just, yes, he doesn't want to, but his dishwasher looks great. It probably does. And so this is only a 2-week holiday. And I know it's way too small for you to read, but you get the gist of it. Sort of like, if it's green, we're on land. If it's blue, we're on a boat. If it's something, we're in a plane. And oh my, you should see the one that he's done for a 4-week holiday. And I love it because I can go, what's the address of that hotel we're staying in Phnom Penh, but and what time does the plane go? But I would never put that together. But look, that might be you. So if that's your way of thinking and that's your natural strength, fantastic. You're going to stay on task, but it can sometimes be a bit too much detail, you know, and bamboozle people. You might know someone who tells us the whole iceberg rather than just what we want to know. Or perhaps you're more this person. So are you the big picture sort of a person, or tend to make decisions sort of based more on intuition. You're a bit of a go with the flow, that kind of thing. So I'm that sort of person. And the trouble with that is that you can waffle on too much, and also you can start talking before thinking. So that sort of thinking is more about, well, I've started talking and I'm not sure where I'm going, rather than, oh, I'm just going to stop for a minute. So, but if you can put the two together, then that's the secret to thinking on your feet, is just take that nanosecond to go, wow, what do I want to say? Okay, at least I've got the first point right now. I'm going to speak, and then I'll pull it together. Oh, people are loving that travel plan. Honestly, look, I'll book you a berth. Come on holidays with us. So that would be fantastic. So very interesting. So I wonder if you've got a leaning one way or the other. Either way, if you think first, have a structure, and then go with that, and then wrap it up at the end, then that is definitely a way to think on your feet. And you might be thinking as you're going, but you're sounding very intelligent by the time you get to the end of it. And that's, of course, is what it's all about. So let me just move on a little bit and say, you're probably wondering why I've said, are there three things? And look, it is a rule of thumb. So please don't go to every meeting from now on going, there are three things, because, people go, what happened? And you go, well, I went to this webinar, so don't go crazy on threes. There is a reason for threes being a little bit of a rule of thumb. And here it is. And so I'm wondering, if I said to you, unless you're a trivia buff, I'm actually going to trivia tonight, but unless you're really terrific at trivia, you might not know this. So if I said, what's the name of the seven dwarves? Most people, and I would be going, oh, well, there's Slippy, there's Bashful, there's Dopey, I think there's one called Doc. Yeah, and it's interesting that around about three, give or take, is really easy to remember. Seven is really hard to remember, and it's really interesting how often we sort of go wrong. So if I said to you, what's the seven deadly sins? Oh, look, people say that to them. If the seven deadly sins might be a bit the same. And look, a lovely guy in one of my courses is also in learning and development, and he said that the previous week he'd run a session on communication, the 7 C's. And I thought, oh, wow, do I dare ask him, or am I being really mean? And so I said, so what are the 7 C's? And he went, oh, okay. Well, there's clear, concise, there's courteous, then there's customer focused, and then thinking, I wonder how many of those 7 that the chef or the people in hospitality there was presenting this to could actually remember. I suspect not all 7. So 3 is a very intuitive thing, and you'll recognise up and away, and on your mark, get set, go, and morning, noon, and night, and 3 times you're a lady, and 3 strikes you're out, and all sorts of things. There's all sorts of things. People are saying the picture helps. Well, it does, but you don't often have that, do you? Maybe you do if you have some visuals behind you. So let me just share a few things about 3s. Well, here we are, the Institute of Managers and Leaders. How good is that? So 3 is a bit of an intuitive thing, and the logo, of course, is IML, and you can see lots of other ones there, which are AMP, IGA, BHP, all of so all of those sorts of corporate things. Interestingly, I don't know whether you remember that we used to have Price Waterhouse Cooper. Before that, we had Coopers and Lybrand and whatever. So when they merged, we didn't have Price Waterhouse, Coopers, Lybrand, Smith Jones, and somebody else. So you've got to just pare it down to 3, or it gets insanely complicated. So what are some other ways of using 3s? So maybe it's your mission statement, maybe it's values. And so the Australian Securities Exchange, their mission statement is fair, orderly, transparent market. And interestingly, we know that 3 is a bit of a rule of thumb. So marketing people tell us if you go above that, it sounds like a snake oil salesman. So it's not fair, orderly, transparent, well considered, ethical, and something else, so no, too many. So fair, orderly, and transparent. My children went to that school, Learn, Grow, Achieve. Lots of schools, universities, groups, community things have a bit of a theme of threes. And here we have the project news delivered differently. So you get the idea. So there's lots of those threes. You'll notice them all over the place. So this week is 1 year until the Paris Olympics. And so faster, higher, stronger are things. Oh, 3 tiers, people are saying, in supermarket brands and fantastic generic things. We had the World Pride earlier in the year, didn't we? Their values are gather, dream, amplify. Maybe you're a fan of Survivor, outwit, outplay, outlast. I often say to organisations, so what are your values? And they go, I think it's on a plaque in the kitchen. Or they, well, I think it's integrity, and is it equality, and is it... So if you have 6 or 7, yeah, look, it's really getting quite complicated, isn't it? So lots of these that you will recognise: reduce, reuse, recycle, or stop, revive, survive, and slip, slop, slap, all sorts of things. If I left you a voicemail and said, oh, I'm sorry, I've missed you, so it's Pam, perhaps you'd call me back, and I'll leave my number. So I would say it's 0412 172 029. But if I left you a message that said, oh, hello, it's Pam, I'm sorry, I've missed you, just leave you my number, and that's 0412 172 029. What? You're going, what? Or if I did it in 0421 72, you go, what? So we're sort of waiting for that 3. It just seems to be a pattern that we are familiar with. So I'm hoping that this swapping over my screens now will work for us. But you might know that slip, slop, slap has expanded because in Australia, we have the highest rate of skin cancer anywhere, of course. And so we also need sunglasses and to be in the shade. And it's interesting, even the Cancer Council tends to find that it's a little bit of a challenge sometimes to remember that. So let me just share with you a bit of an example. So here we go. So I'm about to play for you just a little snap off the morning news. Now, this is the weather guy who knows that today we're talking about skin cancer. There's probably a guy with cue cards, with the 5 words on it. But still, it is a bit of a challenge. So here we go.
This will advise you exactly how much sun protection you need. But of course, the 5 S's if you're not sure. So that's slip, slop, slap, sink, and slide. So slip on a shirt, slop on some sunscreen, slap on a hat, seek some shade, and the last one is slide on some sunnies. There we go. I got there. It is a little hard to remember, but it is very easy to do, guys. So slip, slop, slap, sleek, and slide. Hard to say too.
Oh, poor man, I feel really guilty showing you that. But it's so easy we're familiar with slip, slop, slap, and then after that, it just gets complicated. You might know that resuscitation used to be airways, breathing, circulation. Now it's Dr. ABC and so it's danger, response, airways, defibrillator. Oh my goodness, So again, someone mentioned if it's on a picture, that would be good. Luckily, it's often on the chart on the wall, isn't it? So interesting, isn't it? That 3 is a bit more intuitive, So as I'm chatting, I'm suspecting that you might be recognizing a few of the things that I'm talking about. So here, let's hope this slide comes back up. Oh, good. Yeah, it's working this time, which is really good. Okay, so we did have a look at that. So let's move on. And we had a look at that. And let me just move that on. Right. So you will notice that a lot of really significant speeches have 3s in them. So not being political at all, but politicians are easy people to notice what they do. So I often use a few examples. So day 1 of a new Prime Minister, here are the 3 priorities that they're working on. And another very significant and famous speech in Australian history, this time for Kevin Rudd. And you can see the 3 and the repetition that is there, which is really effective. So how do you think on your feet? Well, hang on a second, there we go. So the technique tends to be, well, definitely think first, because if you don't know what you want to say, you're really going to be in trouble. So decide what you want to say, pick the pegs, if at all possible, at least the first one, so you know where you're going. Let your listeners know what the pegs are and expand on that and then wrap it up. So I've been giving you 60 seconds or 30-second examples of that, but in your world, this is much more significant content. So know what you're going to say, let them know, expand on that, wrap it up at the end is the way to go. So there we go. So let me share one more thing with you, which is I'm wondering if you are familiar with Daniel Pink. So I suspect if many of you have been involved with the Institute of Managers and Leaders for a little while, you will know Daniel Pink. So Daniel Pink is sort of known for some contemporary thinking on motivation. He has the drawing hand, the surprising truth about motivation, talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So just to sort of remind you, in case you know who Daniel Pink is. And so Daniel Pink, I don't know whether Daniel Pink has been to Think on Your Feet in North America. Perhaps he has. But Daniel Pink gives us an absolutely perfect example of how to do this. So as I play this for you, just because there's a lot of us on this Zoom call, just bandwidth maybe are just a tiny bit stretched. I'm sure the sound will be perfect, but if the picture is a tiny bit lagging, please forgive us, but I'm sure you can hear what he does. So that's Daniel Pink on the right, interviewing another eminent professor who's talking this time about meetings. And so let's have a look at their
Charlotte. His academic expertise is meetings, and his research is so good he won the Humboldt Prize, which is Germany's equivalent of the Nobel Prize. He's also the author of this terrific book, The Surprising Science of Meetings, and he is here with some tips on how to make our meetings better. Stephen, help me. I hate meetings. What can we do to make them better?
All right, how about 3 tips?
3 tips is perfect.
Okay, good. How about separation, standing, and shrink?
Okay, I like it. Go.
All right.
What's separation?
So separation is this idea that meetings typically are interrupting someone from a task that they either wanted to do or needed to do.
Okay.
So the best leaders recognize that they have to help bridge that separation by fully embracing the role as a steward and welcoming people to the meeting, being a good host, making introductions, maybe even have music on or snacks.
Okay, so separate meeting world from the rest of the world. Second tip.
All right, standing.
Standing.
So there are 55 million meetings a day in the US alone.
Unbelievable.
And basically everyone's doing these meetings the same. So what I want to advocate for is mix it up a little bit. If you're always sitting, try standing. Try having a walking meeting. Try brainstorming in silence. All of these techniques can lead to better outcomes.
Okay, and number 3.
Shrink.
Go see a shrink because meetings are driving me crazy.
Okay, so why do I need to see the shrink? All right, so typically meetings are an hour long. Guess why they're an hour long?
Because that's what Outlook says.
That's right.
Oh,
and
unbelievable.
And that makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
Especially given Parkinson's law, which is the idea that work expands to fill whatever time is allotted to it. So a meeting that's scheduled for an hour magically takes an hour.
Of course.
Well, we can use that to our advantage. We can schedule a meeting for 48 minutes, for example.
And then it'll take 48 minutes.
Then it will take 48 minutes. And so what I want a leader to do is be purposeful in thinking about how long the meeting should be, and then even dial it back a little bit, create a little pressure. Research shows that teams actually perform more optimally under some levels of pressure.
Very interesting. These are 3 really, really good tips on how to make your meetings better. Listen to Professor Rogelberg. Separate, stand, shrink. Your meetings will improve. Thank you for joining us in this meeting of the Pinkcast.
Okay, so brilliant. I think all of us can walk away going, you talked about separate from work, standing to make it a different kind of a meeting, and shrink and wrap it up at the end. So wow, what a fantastic explanation. So So there we go. So I hope you heard that. Somebody said they had no audio, but I hope that for most people that one came across, and we'll definitely put that in the link for you in the chat for you as well. So, oh, yep, that's good. Other people could hear it. That's great. So, as I said, bandwidth is a hard thing to predict, isn't it? So far we've been talking about, we'll share with us 3 points and make sure that you tell us your pegs, thinking that way. You're probably wondering, aren't there some connections? And of course that there are. So we look at 3 plans that you might use if you want to share some information. Clock plan is about time, a globe plan is about place or location. Triangle plan could be perspective, issues, most important reasons. Or you might want to persuade people or get some buy-in or sell your ideas and get people on board. You might want to use a Zoom plan, big picture, here's an example, or a pendulum plan on the one hand, on the other hand, here we go, or perhaps talk about the benefits. So I'm going to share just 2 of those with you very briefly, the clock plan and the Zoom plan. So what does that look like? So let's imagine we might want to use that sequence, chronology, process, that sort of thing. And so connect our 3 points with time. So if I wanted to talk about sort of different topics, just as long as my pegs are words that if you heard them, you could hear, that's the passing of time, then we're all good, and there's no sort of definitive list, but there's just a few. Initially smoking was trendy, then you're a bit of an outcast, and now vaping has gone crazy, and we hope that that doesn't bring a new generation into that space. Workplace 2 years ago, we all showed up at work at 8:30 every morning and 5 days a week, but then the pandemic hit and we found that now, there's some better ways of working and some hybrid ways of working that we've embraced. Or perhaps you want to talk about yourself, because initially we said, what if you had got that question, tell me about yourself? What are some ways to answer that? So maybe I want to answer that with a clock plan. So this is how I might answer. I wonder how you might. So we might talk about our career. So you might say initially and after that, or now, for example. So if I was talking about my career, I might say, well, I began luckily in a very professional learning and development space at Westpac when at the start of my career. After that, I moved on to managed learning and development for a few organisations, mostly sort of in that finance area. And now I work as a consultant. And so it gives me a broader span of people to work with and things to do, which I love. So it could be that. Or, interestingly, the clock plan can also go in the reverse. So if I met you today, you don't want me to say I started on the graduate program at Westpac, because you're going to go, God, when was that? That can't be relevant. So I might be better to do in reverse, and so might you. If you met someone now in a workspace, you might want to talk about your current role, and then perhaps what led you to be there might be a nice way to do that. So in reverse, I might do this. So hello, I'm Pam. Look, I work as a learning and development consultant, and I mentioned a few things about that before. Prior to that, I had the privilege of managing learning and development for some reasonable size organisations. And look, initially, my step into L&D was luck, I think, because someone said, would you like to run a training course? And it seemed to be something that suited me. So that might be another way that you might answer that question on how, a little bit about your career. So last thing almost is there a pattern? Or, I talked about pattern. What does that actually mean? So if you were saying this with me, we might do this. If you love shoes, you probably love to shop. And if you saw a field all the same, that is called a crop. And when we get to a green light, we should stop. Wow, so actually when we get to a green light, we should go. So if my pegs don't have that pattern that you would be expecting, you'll be a bit like those zeros and ones going, oh, actually, that's not what I was expecting. So that's the other rule of pegs is, perhaps 3 is good. Think first, share them with us. And have some sort of a logical structure behind it. So in that case, that one was time. So I'll just share one more structure with you, because in the questionnaire we said maybe what you want to do is answer that question. It says, what is your team working on at the moment? And maybe that's thrown to you on a Zoom. Maybe the lift doors have just closed and you found yourself in a lift with the general manager who's going, what's your team working on at the moment? Or you were making a coffee and here's somebody significant who goes, what's your team doing at the moment? So what would be some ways of doing that one? So I quite like that general to specific one, which we call a Zoom plan. So sort of broadly speaking, here's an aspect, can I tell you one thing? So perhaps it's this, maybe it's, what's your team working on? Well, look, across the business, communication has always been mentioned in our climate surveys. It's always something we're wanting to improve. So one area that's key is ensuring that our managers communicate effectively about change. And specifically, we're running some Think on Your Feet programs to give them the skills to do that. So I've gone from big picture, here's an aspect, here's one thing. And many people in your meetings, some want to know the specifics, some want to know the big picture. So that sort of structure seems to provide something for everybody. So maybe I'm going to do the reverse. Maybe I'm going to go from the specific to give it some weight. So this is a fantastic way to manage upwards, talk to people who are the strategic thinkers, to get people to realize that what you do is really important. So maybe it's this. So what's your team working on at the moment? Well, one of our priorities is a wellness program. And for our team, we think that that will improve morale and productivity. And of course, across the organisation, we're working on providing a more positive workplace culture and improving our business performance. So we feel that that's where that would fit. So there might be another way to tell us about what your team is working on. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a snapshot, a postage stamp of what is thinking on your feet. It's getting your ideas across with clarity, brevity, and impact under pressure. And why is it important? So I'm just sharing with you now. This is something that someone who attended a course with me had sent me afterwards, which I really love. So this was a gentleman who was, not an accomplished speaker at all. He sort of worked in retail, and his organisation had done a fundraiser for a local school, and he went to drop the check off, and they went, oh, there's an assembly on, please give it to the children, that they'd love to see you and thank you in person, so come with me. And as he went around the corner, he found there was 350 kids and 600 parents. There's 1,000 people. And so you can imagine the heart-stopping moment of, what am I going to say? And I hope you can see his hand where he's written the icons of the two plans that we've looked at this morning, which is the clock plan and the Zoom plan. So I assume he might have said, look, before now, I don't think children had everything they wanted, but today we're so thrilled to be able to present this to you, and we hope that in the future that will make a difference, not only for the children of this school, but of the whole district, and as they move out into the workforce, into their lives in general. So I'm hoping that was a bit of a clock plan and a zoom out, and I assume that that is quite likely to be what he said. So use two sides of your brain, use some structure, and it's so important, because if the right people get support for the right ideas, then that's where everybody succeeds. And I'm sure you're the right people with the right ideas. I think we've all seen brilliant ideas fall by the wayside or not get taken up, perhaps because of the way that they were delivered. So I hope that that's where what we've done today will fit into your toolkit and give you the opportunity to be a better influencer when it counts. So thank you. So Ash, we look like we've got a lot of questions. I better hand over to you to see what we should answer.
Yeah, firstly, Pam, thank you so much for that presentation. It was absolutely fantastic. And I think it's given all of us a lot of practical tips. I know I'm never going to be able to unsee the theme of threes ever again. I'm going to be seeing it everywhere from now on. We do have a couple of questions that have come through. If anyone else has any, please feel free to add them in. And thank you everyone for sending through some really great feedback on the session so far. It's great to hear that everyone's enjoyed Pam's insights today. The first question is from Karen, and it asks, what techniques would you employ while formulating your pegs on the fly to avoid awkward gaps?
I think the main thing is to have a couple of structures up your sleeve. So I've shared with you the clock plan today. So maybe that's the first one to get you out of trouble. If you, came onto the course, we could share a few more. But I always think, is it a clock plan or will I do a triangle plan? So under pressure, I'm going to go, will I talk about the background, where we are and where we're going? Or will I just share 3 key things? So just taking that nanosecond to go, have I got a structure? Have I got some points? Right now I'm out of trouble. I think that tends to be mine. I have a couple that I find are easy to do.
Wonderful. Thanks, Pam. The next question is from Olivia, and it asks, and I think a lot of us can relate to this, how do you get over the initial panic of being asked to think on your feet and present without notice? I know a lot of us can relate. We were just talking about this within my team the other day. It can often make you just break into a cold sweat if you are asked to present. Do you have any tips for being able to move past that and into really being able to think logically about what you have to do?
Well, I think some of it's that self-talk, isn't it? Sort of you have that out-of-body moment, like, well, and you've got to realise that, it's really about the content and them, not about us. There's some physical things like take a couple of deep breaths, which look, it sounds so obvious, but it does put the oxygen back in our brain and away from those other big muscle groups. So I think I would go with that. And then for me, once I know that first peg, I think I'm okay. And so just that first point tends to get you out of trouble, because you do know all that information is in there in little boxes. You've got to unlock that Google, I think. Sort of take a breath, don't panic. If it's a question, there's some techniques on handling questions as well, such as thanks for raising that, Ash. That's a really good question. Or, okay, so what can you do if you're caught unawares? Or, do you mind me asking, Ash, what do you mean by that panic moment? So you just sort of push it back a little bit and give yourself time to think and get your ducks in a row as you start.
Some excellent tips, Pam. Thank you. I'll be taking those on board, definitely. We have a question from DJR. What were the names of the 4 structure tools, 4 other structure tools, so we can read about those if you have them.
Oh, look, unfortunately, I don't think you can read about those, because Think on Your Feet, we should have mentioned, is actually a licensed program, and the things that are sort of the IP are the icons, but though I've shared a little bit of a snapshot of 2 of them today, but if you'd like to know more, it sounds like I'm being really cryptic, doesn't it? But one of the licensing things for us is that you need to use the material if you're going to share the content with people. So I wish I could tell you more, but please come to a program if we can share more. I think the rule is you can do half an hour and 1 plan without using the licensed material. So that's what I've tried to do today. But definitely the clock, the triangle, that's 3 things, isn't it? And the Zoom I shared with you.
Wonderful, Pam. Thank you so much. I'll just check if there's any other questions that have come through. Don't think so. Pam, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation today. It's been a really fantastic learning experience for all of us. As I mentioned before, there's been some really good feedback that's come through so far. So we really appreciate you taking the time to share your insights with us today. And just off the back of what Pam said, I'm really excited to announce that the Institute is going to be partnering with Think on Your Feet to offer the full Think on Your Feet program on September 20th and 21st this year, with more sessions to follow. They will be virtual sessions and they'll take a deeper dive into today's learnings and provide the knowledge and skills to be able to communicate with clarity, brevity and impact, as Pam mentioned throughout her session. We'll be seeking expressions of interest following today's session for anyone or any teams that are looking to take part in this great program. So please keep an eye out on your emails for details about how you can put forward your expression of interest. For those of us joining for the next session, we're going to be back online in around half an hour with Scott Martin for exploring internal communication in the new world of work, which will be a great session. For those of us leaving today, thank you so much for taking the time to attend. We really appreciate it. Please make sure that you keep an eye out for details on our programs and our great short courses and events. And of course, there's always the opportunity to join our ever-growing membership community as well too. Thank you again, everyone. I hope you have a great day ahead.